Yo, what is up, world? Mighty Beebs here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. It's good to see you guys. Happy Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Whenever you're watching this, it's good to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. So this week's vlog, we're going to be talking about manual exposure. It's going to be a refresher or a recap as to the 3 things that control exposure. So before we get into it, go ahead and roll that intro, and I'll see you guys soon. Alright, so welcome back. This week we're going to be reviewing or talking about the 3 things that dictate exposure, which really just means you're going to be using your camera in full-on manual mode. So welcome, you have graduated from using your cameras in auto mode. Now you're here in the big leagues and you're on your way to making big bucks. Alright, so let's just get right into it. First off, we got to figure out what in the world exposure means. Now you've heard this before. This is a word that's thrown around a lot on film sets, if you're a DP, if you're a director. So to me, the quick and easy definition of exposure really just means how bright your image is, like so, or how dark your image is, like so. So that is a really quick and easy way to define what exposure is. Again, exposure is just measuring how bright or dark your image is. All right, so first off, we're gonna be talking about shutter speed. Now, when you're in full manual mode, this is one of the 3 things that you can control to help dictate how exposed, again, remember how bright or dark your image is. Now, shutter speed refers to the door that opens and closes in front of our sensor. So when you think of shutter speed, just think of a door opening and closing. How fast it opens determines how much light is going to get into your sensor. So the faster you have your shutter speed, the darker your image is going to be, or the slower your shutter speed is, the more light that is going to come into your sensor, therefore making your picture brighter, like this here. So let's slow down that shutter. So again, that is shutter speed. It really just dictates how fast or slow that shutter is opening and closing every time your sensor is being exposed to the world. Now, one other thing that shutter speed can dictate is whether you are freezing motion because your shutter speed is so fast. An example of that would be if you're taking sports photography, you're needing to freeze someone because they're running really fast, they're jumping really far, whatever it may be. You're gonna wanna speed up that shutter speed to slow down, to freeze your subjects in motion. And vice versa would be if you're in a dark area and you're filming something that doesn't really require a lot of movements. Maybe you're at an art gallery and you're just taking photos. You're gonna wanna slow down that shutter speed because more than likely it's darker in that room. So the longer that door stays open, the more light comes in and paints on your sensor. All right, so next up is aperture. Every single lens that you use on a camera, whether it be your smartphone, your camera, your DSLR that you're filming your YouTube videos, or your videos for your class projects, whatever it may be, if you have a lens attached to your camera, it more than likely, probably 100%, has a aperture. So aperture you can think of as a little eyeball. It's that little round part that opens and closes. Again, it's very similar to our own eyes. So when you think about aperture, just think of your own eyeballs. When we're outside and it's really bright, your eyes are going to adjust to the light because there's so much of it that aperture is going to close down and be really tiny and let less light in because there's already enough light out there. So that is a closed down aperture, which an example of that would be f/22, f/36, f/44, so on and so forth. That is a closed down aperture opposed to a wide open aperture. If you have a camera that opens up really wide, for example, f/1.8, f/2.8, heck, maybe even f/0.95. Super wide, which means you're going to let in a lot of light. So depending on the lens that you have, your lens may open up very wide, which is why some lenses are over thousands of dollars. It's because that aperture opens up super wide, and what comes along with opening up your aperture is something called depth of field. Now, depth of field, how can I explain it in the most fastest, easiest way to comprehend? Depth of field is what I like to explain as the things that are in focus versus the things that are out of focus. Now, there is a difference between those 2 things, and that difference is your depth of field. Now, if you open up your aperture to f/1.8, f/2.8, or heck, like I said, f/0.95, that means that aperture is going to be super wide open, which means if I'm in focus, the things that are behind me or in front of me should be out of focus. That's because our aperture is open, super big, super wide, and vice versa. If you close down that aperture, everything that you're pointing your camera at is going to be in focus, which is why when we're out in the world and we're taking photos of landscapes, you hear this all the time, you're going to want to have a higher f-stop, which just means your aperture is closed down and it's really tiny to get everything in focus. So I hope that makes sense. The aperture to me is really the biggest thing to comprehend. It's something that I personally, as a cinematographer, love to use in my images. All right, and last but not least is ISO. I said this before in my class, and those of you who are my students watching this, you probably remember when I was like, I really don't know what the definition of ISO stands for. So please don't flame me, everyone else in the comments who know what ISO stands for. If you know what ISO stands for, just drop it down in the comments. Be so kind to help me out and help everyone else out too. But like I said in my class, I may not know what ISO exactly stands for, that little acronym. I do know what it controls and what it does to our images. Now, ISO is just referring to the sensitivity of light that our camera exposes. So if you think about it, when you're in a low light situation and your aperture is wide open, you've slowed down your shutter speed to allow as much light as you possibly can, and yet you still need more light. The last thing you can do is bump up that ISO. So the higher your ISO is, the more sensitive your camera sensor is to light, which means you can basically see at nighttime. Now, when I got my Sony A7S, which is right there, it was groundbreaking because that camera was super sensitive to light, like no other mirrorless camera was before its time.
Yeah, this is what I'm seeing with my eyes, is this, and this is now at 40,000, which is higher than I just was, wasn't it? Yeah.
But there is a trade-off. When you bump up your ISO extremely high, you start to introduce grain and noise to your image. Now, if you can think about the last movie you saw and you really enjoyed it, I guarantee you there was no noise and there was no grain in that image. I mean, unless it was intentional by the filmmakers, but I highly doubt that. So keep that in mind when you bump up your ISO. Your images are going to be softer, they're going to have more noise, and they're just going to be like nasty artifacts in the image. Now, on the opposite end of that, if you're outside, it's a very bright day, you're going to want to have your ISO down as low as you possibly can. This camera that I'm currently filming on, the lowest ISO setting is ISO 100. So 100 being very low. So there is a huge difference, and you can think of ISO being the lower the number is, the less sensitive our camera is to light, and the higher the number is, the more sensitive to light our camera is. Whew, okay. So that was it in a nutshell. I wanted to make this as quick and fast and dirty as I possibly could. So I hope this all made sense. And again, I did make a video talking about this a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, and the link to that will be up here or up here. It'll be on a little card. So be on the lookout for that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, let me know down below in that comment area. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's vlog. You know what to do if you did. Go ahead and do a super jump on that like button down below, and also get subscribed to the YouTube channel because every Wednesday, my goodness, is a brand new vlog. I'm Matty B, the cinematographer, and I'll see you guys in 7 days. Peace.